Now this might look like a drone shot, but it's not.
I think I'm gonna throw up. Okay,
here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee.
I'm shooting with the Insta360 ONE X, a 360 camera and a 3PV camera. In this review, we'll talk about specifications and features, disadvantages and problems as well. But more importantly, I want to focus on what difference this camera makes for you. Not just your videos, but also your family. Hi, my name is Mick and you're watching 360 Rumors, the resource that 360 shooters trust for in-depth camera reviews and innovative techniques. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you again. It's 5 a.m. and I'm on my way to the San Gabriel Mountains in LA. There, I'm going to meet a group of people I've never met before and trust them with my life. I'm going bungee jumping. I'm shooting with the Insta360 ONE X. This simple looking camera represents the next stage in the evolution of action cams and personal cameras. Is it really worth spending a whole day hiking 5 miles in and 5 miles out over rocky and sometimes steep terrain just to jump off a bridge? Is the footage really so epic that it's worth it? Well, maybe, but one thing I do know is that this camera has the power to totally transform your memories for you and your loved ones in ways you never expected. I'll tell you more about it later on the way to the bungee jump. Now, for casual shooting, smartphones do a pretty good job. So good that most people don't feel the need to get another camera. But wait till you see this camera. It's completely different because it's a 3PV camera. Wait, do you mean a 360 camera? Yeah, it's a 360 camera, but more than that, it's a 3PV camera, a third-person view camera. What's that? Well, these are cell phones, and so is this. But a smartphone can do so much more that it's almost like an entirely different device. Well, same thing with the ONE X. Yeah, it is a 360 camera. But when you say 360 camera, most people think that all it does is take 360 photos and videos. And the ONE X can definitely do that, but it can do so much more. Because a stabilized 360 camera, a 3PV camera, like the ONE X, is the ideal tool for capturing a third-person view by yourself. Now, the videos you're seeing look like they were shot by a cameraman or a film crew. But they were all shot by me with just one camera, and each scene was shot with only one take. Now, don't you just love how the mountain looks in this autumn light? Now check this out. The trail got really narrow several times. That's a pretty steep drop. Can you imagine a cameraman walking backwards to track you on this terrain?
I don't think so.
By the way, if you're wondering why I'm limping, that's because my shoes were chafing at my ankle until the skin was gone and then kept chafing at it for 9 more miles. It was like rubbing an open blister again and again with each step. But like I said, it's worth it because of something bigger at stake here.
Here it goes. Ooh, icy cold. Oh. Made it.
So we were talking about a third-person view. A third-person view is usually more effective and makes videos look more cinematic. If you search YouTube for bungee jumping videos, you can see a lot of videos where GoPros were attached to helmets. And for the most part, they look like just shaky videos, and you can't really tell what's going on. But with the third-person view, you can absolutely see how the guy is jumping and hanging on for dear life. You saw how useful a third-person view is. Now here's the critical part, so listen up. With a 3PV camera like the ONE X, you can get a third-person view by yourself, even in situations where no cameraman can follow you. There's no other way to get this amazing perspective, and that's why 3PV cameras are such powerful tools. Now, how do you aim a camera at yourself? If you've ever tried to take a selfie video with the rear lens on your phone, you know how hard it can be. But the One X makes it super easy. Here's how. Just press the shutter button and it begins recording. After it starts recording, you don't have to worry about where it's pointing. Instead, you can just shoot first and point later. And you don't have to worry about keeping the camera level either. It's not just gimbal-like, it's actually better than a gimbal. And since you don't have to aim it and it's stabilized, you can forget about the camera and just focus on enjoying the moment. Now, if you want to shoot remotely, you can do that too. You can control the camera remotely with your phone and live view. There's also a special Bluetooth accessory with features that I'll tell you more about later on. Now, do you remember when I said that there was something bigger at stake here? You know, I learned photography in order to take better photos of our family. It's maybe subconsciously I was trying to turn our love and happiness into something physical so that they would hopefully last longer. But ironically, the more photos and videos I took, the less quality time I had with my family. Now that all changed when I got a third-person camera. Suddenly, I could just shoot without aiming. So I could focus on enjoying my time with my family. To me, this is the most important thing about third-person cameras. It's about transforming our memories. Not just the way we record them or the quality of the photos and videos, but transforming the way we experience events. So instead of experiencing them from behind the lens, as it were, we experience them with our family and friends. And that's why I'm so passionate about third-person cameras like the One X. After you shoot the video, just transfer your files wirelessly in 5G Wi-Fi or go even faster via cable. You can become your own director. Here are 6 effects you can do in the app. Number 1, track objects with Smart Track. Number 2, keyframe camera movements with Pivot Point. 3, turn your phone to virtual camera with Viewfinder. 4, combine multiple videos into a montage. 5, create a hyperlapse with motion blur. 6, you can even do a speed ramp effect with time shift. So far we've been talking about videos, but the One X also takes pretty good photos. First of all, it's got manual exposure. It also has ISO priority or shutter priority. And shutter speed can be as slow as 120 seconds or as fast as 1/8000 seconds. It can also take true HDR photos. It'll take 3 shots and you choose the exposure interval up to 4 EV apart. The photos will be stitched and fused in your phone. The difference can be quite dramatic. You can shoot and stitch in raw DNG format, and you can add GPS data to your photos. Now, are there other third-person cameras? Yes, but the One X has a ton of special features. In my written review for the One X, I counted 29 of them. And in fact, there's some more that I can't tell you about yet. But here are 5 of them as of October 28th. Number 5, rugged use. Some cameras like the Fusion can't handle rough environment, but with the Venture case, the One X can.
Alright, I'm almost next. I am next, actually.
4, smooth underwater stitching. There are several 360 cameras that can be used underwater, and some of them don't even require a housing, but very few can stitch well underwater. Now the One X has a special dive case with spherical lenses to capture smoothly stitched shots underwater. 3, Add GPS overlays to your video, speed, altitude, compass heading, and a map that draws itself as you move.
That's why I don't jump.
2. HDR video, not just HDR photos. Insta360 has been a little bit coy about saying how this works, but I believe they're using a Sony sensor with SME HDR. That's spatially multiplexed exposure HDR. So that means in the sensor, some pixels are overexposed, some are normally exposed, and some are unexposed. Then the sensor combines all the data, synthesizes them into one HDR image. But number one feature for the One X is its slow motion. There are actually 3 slow motion modes, so I was trying to jump 3 times. 3K 100 FPS, 4K 50 FPS, and 5.7K 30 FPS. But you're wondering, how is 5.7K 30 FPS slow motion? Well, just wait and see. Here's the first jump. The first slow motion mode is 3K 100 FPS.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee.
Even though I'm being thrown around like a rag doll, the video is very stable and the camera can keep aiming at me. The only way to get this amazing view is with a third-person camera, and the only way to do it in super slow motion is with the One X. Now if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe. 3K sounds obsolete in 2018, but as you can see, it's quite detailed, and it's actually as detailed as 4K videos from some cameras. And 100 FPS can be interpolated smoothly in the app, as slow as 1/4 speed, so it's effectively up to 400 FPS.
Oh my god.
Now,
So
in the
scary.
past, Insta360 has also used slow motion creatively with an effect they called bullet time. Now, bullet time is back on the One X, but it's now 3K 100 FPS. It's also in full 360 and has variable aspect ratios. Now here's the second jump at 4K 50 FPS.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee.
4K videos can be interpolated in the app to as slow as 1/8 speed. Now how well that actually works depends on the scene. Here I used half speed to get 100 FPS. Here I used 1/4 speed to get 200 FPS. Here I used 1/8 speed to get 400 FPS. Now with the One X, Insta360 added a new way to use slow motion. They call it drift shot. Check it out, looks really cool. It looks kind of like a super slow-mo cable cam shot with an invisible cable and without the extensive setup that you need for a cable cam. Now how did they do it? Well, it works with this accessory called the drifter. But you can also get the drift shot effect with a long selfie stick. So you're wondering if 4K looks pretty good, even with just interpolation. What about 5.7K? Well, I was curious too. So I jumped a third time at 5.7K 30fps. But before I show you the third jump, let's talk about the One X's disadvantages and problems. Now here are 12 problems and disadvantages for the One X. Number 1 is it's less detailed than a DSLR or even a 4K smartphone. Now this is true for almost all 360 cameras. First, the sensor is smaller than the DSLR. It's about the same size as the sensor in better smartphones. It also has a wider FOV, so each lens is capturing like 190 degrees or more FOV. Meanwhile, your smartphone is capturing only about 90 degrees. But if you ask me, I think comparing the detail on a 360 camera with DSLRs or non-360 cameras is missing the point. It's kind of like comparing a fisheye lens to a telephoto, or comparing a smartphone to a DSLR. They're just simply different tools. So yeah, you get lower detail, but think of all the shots you saw and how impossible they are on any other non-360 camera. Number 2, you do need to stitch. With a DSLR or smartphone, you just shoot and you're ready to use the footage right away. Now some people will try to do the same thing with the One X files and put the files straight into their editor, and they're surprised that it doesn't work. Well, that's because on the One X, the photos and videos do have to be stitched, just like most other 360 cameras. But there are 4 ways the One X makes stitching easier. First, you can trim before stitching, so that means you'll stitch only what you need. Second, you can do batch exporting on the desktop software. 3, you can save projects. And 4, when you're using overcapture, there's actually no need to stitch. You can go straight to overcapture. Speaking of overcapture, that's the third thing. It does take an extra step. But for me, this is actually the fun part of the process because you get to be a director. Now, so far, these disadvantages are about 360 cameras in general. Here are issues with the One X specifically. First, it has lots of bugs. I get the impression that it was rushed to the market before it was ready. So there are many advertised features that aren't ready yet as of launch date. For example, no HDR video. And in low light, there's blur from using shutter speed that's too slow. But you can avoid blur by increasing the shutter speed. The One X has true manual exposure mode for video, where you can specify both the shutter speed and the ISO. One of the issues with the One X is that it can be hard to remove the micro SD card if you have short nails. Like, you can keep pressing here and it's really hard to get it out. So here's my trick. First of all, I flip the camera over with the buttons facing down. Then I press on this corner that's furthest from the edge. Oh, here's the card. Next, the battery life is kind of short. In real-world conditions, I got around 45 minutes of video recording per battery. The stitching in photos is good, but in videos the nadir is not yet perfect as of October 2018. Next is the red dot lens flare, kind of like in the Theta and a few other 360 cameras. Next, in 3K 100fps mode, there's stair stepping, so hopefully they'll add some kind of anti-aliasing. 11. The graphics card. To get the full 5.7K video on the desktop, you do need a graphics card. You don't need a super high-end one. Even a GTX 750 would be adequate. At first, it might seem like a big deal, but when you think about it, if you're editing 5.7K 360 videos, many software like Adobe Premiere Pro will require you to have a graphics card anyway. Another issue is that 5.7K mode on the Insta360 ONE X has a couple of limits. First of all, the maximum recording time is 30 minutes. After that, you'll have to start recording again. Second, even though it's 5.7K, it uses H.264, so that's not standard. There are some players and there's some editors that can't open it. On the plus side, when you make long recordings with the Insta360 ONE X, it creates one large file instead of breaking it up into smaller files. The cable to connect the One X to your phone is very easy to lose and not so easy to replace. I tried the third-party cable for the iPhone and it didn't work. It might be proprietary. Now here are non-issues. There are reviewers who say that the bitrate is less than the Fusion. Now when the Fusion records video, it writes two files at the same time. Each file has a bitrate of around 60 Mbps using an H.264 codec. Now the Insta360 ONE X in 5.7K mode also records the two files at the same time. Each file has a bitrate of around 50 Mbps, also using an H.264 codec. So in terms of bitrate, the GoPro Fusion and the Insta360 ONE X both have very similar bitrates, although the Fusion has a slightly higher total bitrate. Ultimately, what really matters is the image quality. So check out my upcoming comparison between the Insta360 ONE X and the GoPro Fusion. Now, Tony Northrup has said that 360 cameras are prone to getting scratched, and that's true. But fortunately, the One X does have the Venture case. Now with Venture case, you won't need to worry about using it in rough environments. Tony also said that the stabilization and stitching don't work on the desktop software, and that's because he was using an older version of the Insta360 Studio app. As of the October 8 version, the stitching and stabilization both work, as you can see from these sample videos. Now let's go back to the third jump. Now you might be wondering, how does the One X compare to other 360 cameras?
Well, I'm going to compare it to other 360 cameras. We're going to do a stabilization comparison. We're going to, compare the image quality. And you'll just have to wait till my next video.
Meanwhile, if you want to get the One X at a discount, check out the link in the description below.
Be eyes on the path. Let's do it.
Oh, my legs are still shaking.
Oh yeah, they're gonna keep shaking.
Yeah.
This doesn't get easier, that's for sure. But you're an experienced bungee jumper at this point. I got you back here too. All right, so good position right there. You see your target? Try to even jump further now.
Okay. All right. Before I'll say it first.
Thanks for watching. And
I'll see you in 360. Okay.
Here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bungee.
And let me know in the comments which is the feature of the Insta360 ONE that stands out to you most. Now in the meantime, check out my other 360 camera reviews, such as the one for the Fusion, the Mi Sphere, Gear 360, and other cameras. Thanks, and I'll see you in 360.
I think I'm gonna throw up. Wow. Definitely one of the hardest things I've done. Both the hike and the jump. Like summoning the willpower to do it. Like, well, the first jump is kind of easy because you don't know what to expect. But now that you knowing what to expect, you know, it becomes really hard to like do it again and then a third time. Oh my god. But I'm so glad I did it though.